Good morning. I'm Dave Williams, and I'll be your host today on Pennsylvania for Ag Talks, a very important part of agriculture. I'm host and owner of Pennsylvania Farm Country Radio and American Farm Country Radio and Pennsylvania Country Roads, our TV show on PCN TV. We reach over 5 million people weekly here in the Commonwealth, New York, and New Jersey. I'm proud to be your host today. A virtual town hall on trade supply chains and the future of American agriculture. I'm also pleased to announce that Pennsylvania Cable Network will be rebroadcasting this town hall in its entirety in the very near future. We know in a normal year we might be getting together at the Pennsylvania Farm Show or at county fairs to talk about issues that matter to us. But this is not a normal year. With COVID-19 global pandemic, it's not possible for us to get together in person. And that's a shame. We're showing some slides, past years, and they're just no substitute for being together, experience the sounds, the tastes, the smells of the farm show or the fairs, from the food and the booths to the butter sculpture, and such events cannot be replaced. But we can do our best to keep some of those conversations alive, and that's what Ag Talks is all about. Today's town hall is part of a national conversation coordinated by Farmers for Free Trade and sponsored by some of America's leading agriculture organizations, the National Corn Growers Association, the National Milk Producers Federation, U.S. Dairy Exports Council, Farmers for Free Trade, Corn Refiners Association, Plant-Based Products Council, CACO-ISM, and World Trade Strategies, North American Institute for Meat and Fresh Produce Association of Americas, the American Farm Bureau, and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. Ag Talks is the national conversation focusing on trade, supply chains, and the future of American agriculture. This conversation is critically important. In recent years, we have significant disruptions in agriculture trades, with tariffs and retaliatory tariffs, decreasing exports, depressing commodity prices, and increasing the cost of some farm inputs. Ag Talks is an effort to focus forward in constructive, non-political fashion, regardless who wins the White House in 2020 election. What does the Agriculture Committee want to see from the next White House and the Congress? What policies can Congress and the White House adopt that will help boost exports, get U.S. agriculture back on track on more solid footing? Today's virtual town hall is the fourth in a series of 5 town halls that Ag Talks will convene this summer. Ag Talks has already held successful town halls in Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan, and will hold the final town hall in Wisconsin next Tuesday, September 1st. You can sign up for that at www.agtalks.net. With that, let me cover a few housekeeping items before introducing you to our moderator, who will introduce the panelists. First program is on the record. The session will be recorded and will be available after today's session on agtalks.net and on the FarmFest website. We will open the session to audience questions and welcome you to send in your questions via question button at the bottom of your screen. Angela HOFFMAN with Farmers for Free Trade is with us today and will be reviewing the submitted questions and queuing them up for the panel. If you are media, please indicate such when sending your questions so we can promptly get back to you. During the questions and answer portion of the program, we will administer 2 polls through the Zoom platform. When you see these polling questions pop up, please go ahead and respond to the polls. We will receive the polls results, and at the end of the town hall meeting, you will get them. Most importantly, to our specialists, we ask you to kindly mute your microphone if you are not speaking. So let's get started. It's my great pleasure to introduce to us panel moderator, longtime agriculture leader, Constance CULLMAN, President and CEO of American Feed Industry, and a very special lady for many years in the agriculture world. Constance, it's all up to you.
Thank you, Dave. And thanks to the Farmers for Free Trade for hosting today's AgriTalks Town Hall. You know, trade has been an engine of extraordinary growth for American agriculture, including both exports of our incredible production, as well as imports of needed inputs into production. The importance of trade has been amplified the last few years during what has been a tumultuous and dynamic trading environment. Today, we will discuss what it means for folks on the ground in Pennsylvania and the nation. We are excited by the excellent attendance today and welcome you all. We extend a special welcome to Congressman Dan Miser from Pennsylvania's 9th District. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us today. And we have a great lineup. Let me briefly introduce our panelists. First, we will have Russell Redding, Pennsylvania's Secretary of Agriculture. Governor Tom Wolf nominated Secretary Redding to serve as the 26th Secretary of Agriculture for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in January of 2015. He has an extensive experience in ag, serving as a former dean for the School of Ag and Environmental Sciences at Delaware Valley College. And in a past life, he also worked on Capitol Hill as an ag policy advisor to U.S. Senator Harris Woolford. Next, we will have Brett Davis, Vice President for New Holland, North America. Brett was named Vice President of New Holland, North America in April 2019. He has served as President of CNH Industrial Capital since March of 2015 and has been based in Curitiba in Brazil. Curitiba, Brazil, thank you, where he served as president of Banco CNH Industrial Capital and in Buenos Aires, Argentina as well. We're also joined by Chris Hoffman, owner of Lazy Hog Farm. It's a 1,400 sow farrow to wean, 4,800 head nursery barn, and 4,400 head finishing barn located in Juniata and Mifflin Counties, Pennsylvania. He also owns and operates Lazy Chick Farm and raises about 250,000 chickens annually. Chris is Vice President of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau and serves on the Board of Directors for Pennsylvania's Friends of Ag Foundation. We're pleased to also be joined by Eric Boyle. Eric is the Director of Dairy Procurement for Hershey's. During his tenure at Hershey's, Eric has also served as the Director of Responsible Sourcing and a commodity buyer. Eric serves as the Chair of the Dairy Excellence Foundation. Next, we will have Kelly Huff. She is the owner of Enchanted Acres Farm. Enchanted Acres Farm was founded in 2002, and in 2010, the company relocated to Reading, Pennsylvania facility. The 10-acre location features a 400,000 square foot food manufacturing facility centrally located near some of the major shipping ports and market access routes with rail access. So they are very excited to have also Kelly, as they are a certified woman-owned business. Thank you, Kelly. And finally, we have Ross Siragusa, Head of Agriculture and Seed for Kraft Heinz. Ross has been in the international agribusiness for close to 40 years. He joined the Kraft Heinz Company in 2008 and previously was the CEO of the California Tomato Growers Association and held multiple trading and manufacturing roles with Cargill in the US, Argentina, Chile, Switzerland, and the UK. So he knows something about products moving across borders. So this is a big panel. We're going to keep the opening statements very brief. But we'll have as much time as possible for the question and answer discussion of this. So, Mr. Secretary, I'm going to kick it off to you and turn it over to you for some comment.
Hey, Constance, thank you, and to Dave Williams, our friend and voice of Pennsylvania agriculture. Thank you for the opportunity. As you go through the introductions, I'm just honored to be part of this panel, and certainly appreciated the introductory comments on the framing, on the necessary discussions that we have to have here around food and agriculture and trade. It is at the very center of what we do, of course, in the industry, but having this conversation, particularly at this time, is even more critical. So I bring you greetings from the Reading Farm here in Pennsylvania. Certainly honored to be part of this. I think one of the great developments of agriculture is that we have grown to become an industry where the futures markets and the farmers markets are equally important to feeding a growing world. And what is happening globally will speak to what happens in Pennsylvania. More than 50% of the global population is under the age of 30, including 90% of the population of emerging and developing nations. Increasingly, we face a market full of dichotomies: the desire to grow, buy, promote local, alongside the recognition that 95% of the available stomachs on any given day are someplace other than the United States of America. We want access to the stomachs. That's what this conversation is about. Not only for reasons of profitability of agriculture, but I think all of us, particularly, have been reminded in the last 5 months the important and essential mission to assure that everyone has access to food. Trade is a long view game. It's about building and maintaining relationships. I think good trade policies for Pennsylvania future involve finding more avenues for value-added exports and to make the world more accessible. We have the production, we have the processing, we have the port infrastructure. We can talk more about that later. But all three of those areas have been invested in significantly in the last couple of years. All of this, of course, is in recognition that agriculture in Pennsylvania has been an important part of our past and our history, but we also see it as a critical part of our future. We can say the same for trade: important in the past and critical for our future. So thank you. Appreciate the opportunity today and look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate those comments. Brett, would like to have you pop in at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be on the panel. And I guess this is my second go around. This last year, we participated in the USMCA caravan. I guess we can call it a caravan. Anyway, I'm responsible for New Holland, North America, which we make farm equipment and also commercial utility equipment. We have a factory in Pennsylvania in Lancaster County. And from that factory, about 60% is for local or domestic production, and 40% is for global production. And I think it's important when we talk about New Holland and CNH Industrial that we remind ourselves that we have this global footprint. We have product coming and going across borders all over the world. Free trade and fair trade is essential for the survival of companies like New Holland. When we talk about our customers also demand free and fair trade. We need other markets buying our soybeans, buying our corn, buying our other commodities as well. And, you know, to put it in perspective, what we've seen these last 6 months is very interesting. And we all talk about the global supply chain, but what happened is we've got disrupted. And it only lends itself to say that free and fair trade is even more essential now because we're all interdependent on different countries for producing different goods. So I can say from CNH Industrial, we absolutely advocate free and fair trade globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. We'll now turn to Chris for your perspective, Chris.
Thank you, Constance, and it's my privilege to be on this panel today. I think it's always great to be able to get a group together to really discuss agriculture and its future. I think we got a real positive future in front of us with a lot of great opportunities. As a first-generation pig farmer, one of the reasons we started our farm is that we really wanted to feed the world. And feeding the world is all about trade. It's all about access to a global market. And you know, as we look at where we're at right now in the hog industry, you know, we're already at a dependent level of out of every 4 hogs we produce here in the United States must leave our borders. And so being able to make sure that we are having that access and having our government look at ways to be able to build, you know, new ways for us to market our products and to give us access to the different parts of the world is really, really important. And, you know, it's just what we've seen over the past 6 months has been really an interesting kind of phenomenon here in our farm. you know, we were expecting to have a really good year because exports were climbing. Domestic pork was being eaten at really higher levels. And then all of a sudden you see the disruption that happened. And, you know, in the pig industry, we have three markets. We have our grocery store market for consumers to buy, to be able to put food on their plates and on the dinner table. And then we have our global market. But one of the markets that really has hit us and has not come back yet is really our food service market. And so we're now trying to export more. We're trying to get more onto the plate of the consumer. And so we've got some struggles. And so we really need to look for new markets, expand our horizons outside of our country so that as just not only pig farmers, but all farmers are able to get the products. We're so great at making the best, safest product in the world. And we really need to be able to deliver that to parts of the world that need it. And I'm excited about the future because I know we'll get it figured out and we'll get it moving forward. So thanks again for having me on this panel.
Thank you, Chris. Interesting points on the access on the food service market. So we'll come back to that. Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Eric to talk a little bit about your perspective from Hershey. Eric?
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Constance. And we appreciate having the Hershey Company on the video call today. Just a little bit of background before I talk about trade. At Hershey, as a food manufacturer, we are an important link. We understand our linkage in the broader food supply chain that really provides economic stability for our farmers, partners, suppliers, and communities by creating jobs and fueling demand for ingredients and our products. By operating safely across our business during this pandemic, we have been able to continue to make a positive impact across our value chain, working with our partners and suppliers. Due to our close relationships, we've been able to continue production and support farmers across the dairy, sugar, peanuts, and almond industries. We export our finished products to China, Mexico, and Brazil. Some of our key commodities that we represent, Hershey partners with over 250 local Pennsylvania dairy farmers and is one of the last global chocolate manufacturers that still produces and processes fresh farm milk. We take up to 25 to 30 truckloads of farm milk into our Hershey facilities every day. We are one of the top 10 users of sugar in the US. We source cane and beet sugar and are one of the 5 largest peanut users within the US. When we look at trade, the recent trade wars, 232 steel and aluminum, China 301, EU tariffs, and the imposition of retaliatory tariffs has caused significant impact on our business. From the financial burden of high duty payments to the disruptions of our supply chain, the level of uncertainty in international trade has strained our procurement and business operations. In a post-COVID-19 economy, it will be essential for government officials to eliminate trade restrictions to stimulate economic recovery. In addition, reform of the WTO would ensure that US companies like Hershey have access to foreign resources and export opportunities for food and agriculture products. So thank you for your time this morning, and I look forward to any additional questions.
Thank you, Eric. After that, I know we'll have several. Thank you. I'd like to now turn it over to Kelly.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this. Our company is a manufacturer and producer of specialty dairy products. We focus on powder and infant formula and nutritional products. The export market is a large focus for our company. 2020 has been a historic year for our industry with the China trade deal and the USMCA. In February, our company received the final registration necessary to export infant formula products to China. We are cautiously optimistic that these 2 trade initiatives will increase the United States' ability to compete on a global level. The steps necessary to increase the United States' export numbers will require investment and commitment from both private and public sectors. Cooperation and communication will be two key factors to help drive the demand for U.S. products and services. Communication from the agricultural stakeholders will be crucial for the trade officials to be able to gauge the effectiveness of the trade policies. Enforcement of the policies will be absolutely necessary to help grow the export markets.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate those comments as well. And I think maybe we'll come back to that question on China. Ross, can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts from a Kraft Heinz perspective?
Certainly. It's a pleasure to speak to such an esteemed group and to represent Kraft Heinz on the important subject of agricultural trade. Kraft Heinz has proudly supported Pennsylvania agriculture since its inception. H.J. Heinz once said, "To improve the product on the shelf, you first must improve the produce in the ground." Kraft Heinz is very supportive of free trade and as such opposes tariffs. Although most of our products are produced and sold within a given country, we do have an international supply chain. And so tariffs put Kraft Heinz at a competitive disadvantage. The imposition of tariffs has been costly to us. On the other hand, we support trade agreements. The new USMCA agreement with Canada and Mexico was very beneficial. Canada is our second largest market, and we ship products across the border every day. Another area of trade restriction that gets less attention are import phytosanitary regulations. Don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of protecting local growers and farm economies from imported diseases and pests. What I would like to see changed are the following. One, disparate regulations between countries and trading blocs, which adds delays, cost, and potentially blocks trade. Two, regulations for diseases that don't even occur on a specific species, but still require testing and additional declarations and costs. Three, the rollout of regulations without an approved laboratory infrastructure to effectively manage them. This is adding cost for vegetable and fruit growers across the country. Regulating the movement of goods across borders is complicated. I get that. But I think we all can do a better job. Thank you.
Ross, great comments there as well. Thank you. And thank you all of you for the great statement that you made this morning. There's a lot of substance and a lot of things to talk about in there. I'm going to tee it up and just give you a chance in this question to touch on anything that you didn't in your opening statement. Please tell us where we are today with trade in your industry and what have been the most significant developments in recent years. Is your industry struggling or doing well in terms of trade and exports? Kind of a little bit of an opportunity, particularly that what's been the most significant developments in recent years. I'm going to open that up to all of you. If anybody would like, yes.
I'll just jump in. I mean, I think that, sometimes we speak of trade as though it's somewhere else. I think for our agricultural economy, it's a $3 billion piece of our agricultural economy, thousands of jobs. It continues to grow. It has continued to, improve, notwithstanding the last, 6 months because of COVID. But our hardwoods industry in the state, which is one of the largest exports in Pennsylvania, continues to grow. Value-added food that I mentioned on the front side. When you think about what have been the most significant developments, certainly the USMCA, I've described this. If you're in Pennsylvania, it's a bit like trading with New York and Maryland, right? It is this common market and recognizing that the USMCA is this common market between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So it really is so critical. The China phase one, let's say China discussions in the phase one, I think a significant development in two ways. Certainly on the front side, it has the potential for improving our opportunities there, but continue to worry about the stress that's placed on the farm community from an uncertainty standpoint. So certainly we'll talk more about that, but between the USMCA and China, you get the three largest countries that are our export markets here, at least for PA agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I could add on to that a little bit with the hog industry is as you look back about a year ago, as the agreements were being worked out with USMCA and even the China agreement, there was a lot of positive hope that we were going to be able to see a lot more of our products being exported, with China having African swine fever and the real need for pork. Pork is the #1 protein around the world, and so you've seen our industry start to grow. We were putting more sows in, more pigs on feed, and as we rolled into 2020, we expected it to be one of our best years in a long time, and unfortunately, as we were ramping it up, you get the COVID-19 hits, and it creates a little bit of a little havoc for our industry, and it's really kind of from a hog farm perspective, it was a little disappointing, because we really believed we were going to be able to start feeding more of the world, and but I believe that we'll get through this, and we're seeing the demand not only in China but in South America, Vietnam. It's out there. We just got to figure out using all our tools and all our folks, USDA and government, just to get the job done, to clear the way so that we can do what we do best, and that's feed the world.
Thank you, Chris. Eric and Ross, I'm going to turn to you two a little bit, because you both alluded to this. Any major events particularly as Chris talked about, with the disruption in supply chain and those kind of things? What's your all's perspective? Eric,
Maybe
we'll start with you. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Constance. I think from Hershey's perspective, just going back to my point as far as realizing we're a part of the larger food network and keeping our factories running. So with that, we need certainty within the supply chain and certainty as far as trade restrictions go. So one of the challenges in a post-COVID-19 environment is the elimination of any trade barriers and making sure that our plants are running, and that in turn will increase supply for producers and farmers into our factories. So just that certainty that those trade deals are there and that goods will move freely across borders will provide us with the confidence to produce products and export products globally.
Very good. Very good. Ross?
I'd like to echo Eric's comments. I think that for our business to operate smoothly, we need to reduce the restrictions. We have products moving across borders, and there's so many unintended consequences when tariffs are introduced. All of a sudden, you find out that you have a certain portion of packaging that's coming from an affected area, which disrupts operations in our factories. You find out that you have a key ingredient or part of packaging that only comes from an affected country such as China. And it takes time to adapt, to change your supply chain, and adds more costs. And yes, we like to have diversity, and I think the one positive out of it is that you want to have less dependence on in a certain area, but it is disruptive, and so it ultimately costs consumers.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to go back over to Angela now and see if there's a question from the audience. Who do you have on deck to ask a question, Angela?
Well, we've got a couple questions coming in this morning, and first I'm going to launch a poll that we have here, and we hope that folks will start answering our poll. We're going to keep it up for a while here. Looking forward to having that result. I'm going to start first with a question in our chat box coming in from Stephen Noah, and the question is, as we have crossed the nation talking about international trade, we've discovered that there is an alarming lack of understanding of international trade in general and agriculture trade specifically. What curricula and a syllabus for a course about what trade is and how it affects agriculture be a useful tool?
So basically,
groups like Farmers for Free Trade consider developing such a tool. Trade education, how do we do more of this?
How do we do more of that? I'm looking at some of the faces on our panel, and I see Secretary Redding shaking his head a little bit. Do you have an immediate thought on that, Mr. Secretary?
I'm fascinated by it being the first question, right? That I think this awareness that we've all become more sensitive to sort of the world, both by pandemic discussions, but also trade and the political environment, and the interconnectedness that we feel both as a society and certainly as a world when you're fighting a disease and a pandemic, I think is a silver lining in some regards to the sensitivities and awareness of our communities being, thinking and more aware, because in some cases they've got jobs that are at risk. They've lost their job potentially. So I think the question is perfect, because we should be talking about the economy and commerce more in our curriculum. And as we've learned, a lot of the ag awareness and ag literacy initiatives, you cannot start soon enough. But I think it's what's not well understood and would benefit from the education is speaking very specifically about what from Pennsylvania finds its way to someplace other than our domestic market. And hardwoods is a great example of that. What gets moved around, pork, as Chris has mentioned, the products, the folks represented here. I think that's an opportunity for us, and we should be, as we look into the future, states, governments, as well as federal governments, to be thinking about how do we integrate this agriculture and trade and commerce into our curriculum, both as standards at the state, but also just national initiatives that would help us tell the story of the job creation, the workforce needs, and as well as just a general global mindedness about the importance of what it looks like to be able to move product out of Pennsylvania and into Pennsylvania from around the world. So great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Kelly, I'd like to turn over to you a little bit with that question as well, because I think, as a company your size, it's also been focused so much on getting some product into China and other markets. What do you hope that would be included in people's understanding of the importance of trade to your business?
I think Secretary Redding said it very nicely when he said the more initiatives that we can have to educate people, especially farmers and local governments and state officials, the more that it's open and exposed and people can see all of the regulations. The one thing that we found the hardest was that there wasn't a lot of explanation. There wasn't a lot of follow through. So we had to do a lot of research just to try and get simple questions answered. And we then had to try and educate some of our suppliers and partners on that information. So I think the more that we can get the information out to farmers, to suppliers, that gets those questions answered quickly, I think the better we're going to be.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Brett, you also mentioned that the disruptions in the global ag trade has been hugely impacted on you. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering where you're finding some of those challenges with the lack of understanding of policy making and things like that. So,
no, going back to the education, it's quite interesting because, the general you hear about tariffs, but that's only a piece of the trade issues. I mean, we forget about withholding taxes, we forget about protectionism, and they're all done very discreetly in a lot of different countries. You look at countries in South America, they have special financing if you build the product there, import content, even configuration. So I think it's important education, because everybody's just focused on tariffs, but it's not just tariffs. It's much bigger than tariffs alone. So, but yeah, it's been obviously it's been a very interesting year because, again, the chatter around the world, and or at least with a lot of my colleagues, is how do we change? We have to change our supply chain. Well, that's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. Like I said, we export a ton out of North America with our almost 10 factories. We have 30 some factories around the world, and then the irony is just not having a factory, but there's certain components where you can finish a good with locally sourced products 85% of the way there, but you're missing one, so that they can't finish the whole good, which is costing American jobs right now. And that's a problem. And also the differences in the country of how they've responded has also shown a lot of weakness in the trade agreements that are out there. So USMCA is great, but Mexico has been very difficult with moving product back and forth through Mexico. Canada has not been, because they have some different policies and related to the COVID. So it's been quite a challenge for, I think, industrial companies to be able to navigate these new waters these last 6 months. But I think we've learned a lot, and we're going to have to make some adjustments. But you're not going to localize all of the production from one day to the next as well. It's not realistic.
Thank you. We're finding a very similar situation in the feed industry as well. Angela, I'd like to go back to you for another question from the audience.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to bring in John Scott, who is a producer. I'm just going to unmute him. You have him unmuted there?
John, are you, there we go.
Yes. If the current trade wars were to end tomorrow, whether the current president ends them or Biden would become president, how long do you see it taking for these markets to recover?
Excellent question, John. I'm going to toss that one to Chris first from a producer standpoint. Chris, what are your thoughts on how long it would take for you to start seeing some improvement?
Well, I think it's going to take a little bit of time to see, especially in the pork industry, to see our price rebound. And it's not because of the demand that that we have for our product, because I believe we have a tremendous demand all around the world for our product. But one of the things is right now is that you know, we're sitting with a backlog of pork. The latest things I've seen is that we're probably somewhere in that 95% processing capacity, and it moves around a little bit with the way, you know, some of the COVID-19 things are happening. Our biggest thing is processing around the country. We just don't have enough of it to be able to get it processed, to be able to get it delivered. And I think in the pork industry, that's really where I think we have to expand, and we have to grow our processing capacity to be able to deliver the product that everyone needs. And so I think that's kind of where our bottleneck is right now. We need to continue to open new markets and to be prepared for when we're able to do that. But I think in the pork industry, that's our bottleneck right now, and that's what we need to be focusing on.
Yeah, very, very good point. We've seen a lot of turmoil there. Ross, I'd like to flip it to you on that one. And how long, from your perspective, for an industry like Kraft Heinz?
You know, it's tough, given that you know, I agree with Chris's comments that the supply chain has to be ramped up to support it, and we can move pretty quickly and start re-exporting. But you know, in some cases, when you have restrictions, it's hard to get the consumer to come back. Is, you know, if the consumer switches to a different product, then the opportunity is lost. And so for us, it's, you know, it's not overnight, but it's certainly from a initial financial perspective. If you didn't have the tariffs, you would save certainly on the cost coming in, and it would free things up, and that would help. But it takes time to get the consumers back.
Yeah, absolutely. Brett, from your perspective, because you're dealing with competitors globally that have had some different challenges, different markets, how do you see that picture?
Well, I was thinking about more of the row crop issues. And, you know, we know that China is being a huge supplier of soybeans, or a buyer of soybeans, we being the supplier. And, you know, it's been slow on and off. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit different, almost the opposite. We don't need more capacity. We have overcapacity today. And in both corn and soy, I mean, there's a lot out there to be delivered, more than probably what is needed. And it's essential that, yeah, of course, China comes back online, but also I look at it as a global market, because you're going to do so many tons of soybean. It's got to go somewhere. So if it doesn't go to China, it has to go somewhere else. Someone's going to supply them. And then we're going to have to supply somebody else that couldn't get supplied. But this is a big issue. And then we've even seen it worse now with, what happened with the oil, because then the viability of the ethanol industry is a big concern for us. And 30 to 35% of the corn that's grown in the U.S. goes to ethanol. So if ethanol dies, are we looking at $1 corn? So there's a lot of interesting factors going on and a lot of concerns. And, I saw the ethanol industry absolutely go into a tailspin, obviously, in March and April when oil prices, basically went to zero or negative. And we'll see what happens this fall again. But they were challenged before that. So I think our actually capacity, and a lot of it, I don't like, because of our machines and also